Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and is this, I'll engage it now, the mythical, long-lost 1177 compressor that nobody ever had, because if you got it, they had to kill you. But now it is available to you for $19.90. No, it's not. This is Airwindows Dynamics3. So that was just a bit of fun. Hanging out on the SurgeXT Discord, people were talking about stuff, and Bacon Paul mentioned how it was funny that there was never a 1177 compressor, but if there was, people would all be talking about how the 1176 was worthless and you had to have the special other one. Well, this is not an 1177 compressor. In fact, it's not even an elaborate model of some other kind of compressor modeling every little piece of electronics hardware. And that's because Dynamics, and again, this is Dynamics3, I've been through a bunch of iterations on this because it started as Bezier-comp. Or I don't think the original Dynamics started as Bezier-comp, but for some time now, Dynamics has been the test bed for me working out how to make Bezier-comp better in order to use it in future versions of console. And all of that has taken up a lot of speed, and there's going to be a new console coming out, and I've got all manner of new stuff coming out. It's really pretty exciting. There's a lot going on. Here's the Dynamics version of that, and if you thought that was something, well, you check this out. Firstly, let's roll this again. You've got threshold, attack, release, and invert. So I'm going to take a moment to actually explain a little bit about how a compressor works and why you might want to use this one. Bezier-comp is using splines to make a smooth compressor behavior rather than just cutting the volume abruptly anytime the waveform goes too far. So what that does is it means that the waveform will poke out, kind of like this. So this is the threshold being lowered way down. I've got it set up so that there's a little bit of makeup gain and stuff too, but mostly this is about the threshold being way down. If we speed up the attack, gets faster, less pokes out in the front of the wave, but you can still kind of hear it. Release gets slower, and the back of the sound gets held down more, or we can slow the attack down. It'll start right up again in a moment. If we slow the attack down, we get more on the front of the wave. Again, cranked all the way up, highest ratio possible, lowest threshold possible. So you can do this. You can have it so it's squishing the back of the wave down, but since it's a Bezier-spline making the shape of the waveform, it does this with it. And you can increase the threshold so that it's more of kind of a texture rather than going crazy with it. Or we can speed it up It's still somewhat related to attack, but speeding up the release means it springs back faster. And we can go real aggressive. Like what you're hearing is a drum kit, so you're not really hearing it interfere with the sound quite that much, although there's a little bit of a warble to it. It basically sounds just like really aggressive compression. If we throw on a bass sound, we start to hear more of how it interferes with the sound. can slow down the release here, and we get a kind of twang. But as we keep fooling with the attack, you'll hear that there is a kind of note that comes in, because it's basically following the sound with the Bezier-spline running at a particular speed. So what that does is this. You can hear the warble, and that's because I pushed the threshold as far as it will go, to the point where it's kind of freaking out. A normal compressor would be a pile of grind at this stage, but not Bezier-com. Instead, you basically get just this kind of behavior, and we can ramp that up until you hear like a frequency in there. And then a fast release means it's exaggerating the behavior. So it can act kind of like a limiter, or more like something where the attack can poke out a little bit. And that is certainly something that you can do. And it works on the drums too. But you'll notice that I have a thing called invert here. So you might ask, what do you get out of invert? Dynamics3 is also an expander. Instead of a gate, it's an expander. Let's show you what that means. So you can do this. It's the opposite of what the gain curve is doing. Not literally. I coded it in such a way that it would do something useful. So here's what we've got. If you have just dry, at 1 it's just dry. The threshold is not engaged. Sneak it off of that a little tiny bit, and now the threshold is engaged. And we're doing some compression. You might not hear it because the threshold is so high. It's not interfering with anything very much. And this is, again, full wet means full compression. As you go towards the middle, it turns it into dry. It's an invert. So if you've got it engaged, middle is the same as bypassing it. But then if we have almost nothing in the way of threshold, just enough to turn it on, listen to what happens when I turn invert all the way to inv, the expander. That's what it's doing to the noise floor, except for the threshold is so low that everything's the noise floor now. This is an expander. This is something where you can do the opposite of compression using the same kinds of behaviors. And that actually has all kinds of useful purposes. I intend to be using this with some drum sounds, bass sounds, things like that. It's completely awesome. Let's explain exactly why that would be. So again, if we push the threshold up, we can make it so you have only the onset and then the compression kicks in. And when the threshold is this low, it's suppressing everything. And we can heighten just the front edge that way. That's normal. That's something that you can do with compression. If we have it set up to be expanding, at first you're not going to get anything if the threshold is so high that it's not interacting. Remember when I turned it on and it made a big loud noise? That's because I had the threshold all the way down. Listen to what happens as I turn threshold down to bring the expander in and let it bring volume up rather than just leaving it quiet. Now we've got an expanded sound, but bear in mind, this is using the same waveform where this is having the front edge sticking out. If we have the front edge sticking out, but instead it's fully expanded, this has the front edge not expanded, so it's expanding more the farther it goes. Check this out, I'll push it further. I think there's a clipper built into this just in case you went like totally crazy. So what we're doing is throwing an expansion on, but the expansion is chasing the attack of the waveform. It's not just doing a transient shaper and hyping up the transients. It's pushing volume just after the attack to the extent that you barely hear the attack anymore at all. Don't believe me? I'll slow the attack down even more. Now it's like it's some kind of crazy compressor, but it's not. That is expansion of what's not the front of the attack. I slowed it down so far that it's swinging up in order to hype up this sound. And you probably wouldn't be using it this exact way unless you want to. You can if you want. But what this is doing is the expansion equivalent of this. A really hard compression that's squishing everything completely beyond recognition. And of course, this is all a dry wet, so we can have just a little bit of that compressed sound, this one, or this is the opposite of it. Now we've got just a little bit of the expanded sound. And the closer we get to 0.5, the more you have the dry sound. And of course this is the dry sound. But now we've got the expander jumping in and swinging up the kind of bloom of the drum a little bit in this ridiculous kind of 80s gated reverb sound. But this is not a gated reverb, nor is it compression. It's like a ridiculous expansion in such a way that you can actually use it on things. And we can also go to full expansion here so we can properly hear what it's doing. And then let's just make the attack come sooner. We can make the release. When we expand the release, we're expanding the amount of expansion that it has. We're doing literally the opposite of this. And here's where we can see what that attack actually sounds like, what we're taking off the front of the wave. And then here's our opposite. And again, speed up the release and it will not flare up as much in volume. Similarly to how it won't flare down in volume if it was the compression like this. This is a very radical compression. Again, it's not a 1077. This is just Dynamics3 from Airwindows. So I'm thinking this kind of thing, this is going to have all kinds of uses for making direct sounds, like, for instance, a kick drum mic, a top snare mic, when combined with things like room mics or overheads. You can use this to act like a sort of gating. And it'll focus in on whatever the spot mic is. But you can also dial it in so that it's taking just the front edge, the sort of spike off of the waveform. We'll slow it down just a little bit to exaggerate that. Or we can speed it up. And it sounds almost like a normal sound. And then just a little lower of a threshold in order to get a wildly compressed sound where just the front edge of the wave, which in a raw recording, that's simply a transient peak that you might not want. You might be wanting to loudinate or limit or clip it off so that everything is a little bit louder. If we compress it, we can leave only that peak sticking out. If that's the part you want to lose in order to make the drums kind of bloom more and hit harder, you can do it like this. And that gives you a dry sounding sound where the front edge of the attack is no longer spiking up above everything else. So this helps for loudinating sounds in a way that gives them some fullness without being compressed and making a lot of boring mess all throughout everything. And again, you can blend it with dry by using the invert to blend it in. And that's not only everything, you can also do the same thing with a bass. Now, a bass doesn't necessarily have the kind of transient spike that a drum might have, but it does still have an attack spike that we can hear like this. So if we were going to compress it real hard, give it a fairly fast release so that it stays kind of flat. We've got a bit of a warble there, but that's because threshold is all the way down. And it is showing me where the dynamic spike is. So if we take this and do the expansion on this, restart it again. What we've got is a bass sound where the front part of the attack has been taken off. And again, threshold will bring up the amplitude of the expanded sound. Longer release will further expand the sound. That's almost like a fretless bass sound. A lot of the attack is just gone now, but it is a expanded sound rather than a very compressed sound. It's the opposite. And it'll flare up in volume unless I tighten the release up even more. And this is how we dial it in so that the amplitude isn't spiking up really hard like this. That's at fully expanded, and what I have to do in order to make it work is to bring in the threshold so that we're intersecting the expansion with where the bass is loudest. And using this, and then perhaps if we want, we can throw some saturation on afterwards, for instance. You can get a bass guitar here where the attack spikes of the string hitting the fretboard or whatever aren't that much louder from everything else, and the solidity of the bass comes in more forcefully. And of course we could also simply compress it. And so that's doing the opposite of compressing, but allowing the front of the waveform to poke through, even though it's not really the melodic or note-oriented part of the waveform. Instead, what you've got there is kind of click noises and things because we've slowed the attack so much. And this is also compression. But then if we reverse that, we get expansion in the same kind of voicing. And since we have obviously the front string handling part of the wave being let through in the compression and then it steps on everything else, the opposite means taking the entire attack of the wave away. And it's a completely soft, unfocused attack, because what we've done is just bring up the amplitude immediately after the attack has gone by. And there you have it, really. I've now spent the entire video doing nothing but demonstrating Dynamics3. So there's been a lot of work that's gone into this. Dynamics3 is it follows on from Dynamics2, but I've gone and rehacked and recoded it at least 3 times. I know for a fact I've done it over again twice, and that's because I keep bringing in new advances in what I'm doing with the Bezier-spline stuff, because people don't really do that, like make Bezier-splines. I guess they'll start now, but it's not like there's been lots of people out there building splines into things like filters and compressors and stuff. I've just kind of found my way out here without asking anybody else for directions on how to get there. But since it's open source, everybody can have it now, whether or not anybody else has ever done this kind of thing. And again, this is not an 1177. This is just me, Chris from Airwindows. I'm the only person here doing all these things, including making the videos and carrying my own firewood. And I have high hopes for this leading towards a really cool console X3, which I'm working on next. So without any further ado, well, a little bit more further ado, I've got some records to do. I've got a track from this one to show people who are $10 and up patrons, because I always share, there's been like 70 of them by now. I share a track from my record collection with people who help me out in that way. And then I have a new Forbidden, which is coming from this record. And this is, of course, not only Eagles, but it's the biggest selling vinyl record ever. Eagles' Greatest Hits. And the reason I'm picking that one and not the album that the song came off originally is because Eagles' Greatest Hits is extremely well reproduced and remastered and everything. That was done around about Hotel California, and they were just stepping into the technology of really letting things like bass and dynamics come out in full flight rather than being early 70s when things were a little bit more raw. And as a result, my contention is some of the reason these things are such timeless hits is because they sound incredible. And I'm able to demonstrate that on Airwindows Meter. But that's for the videos that I'm about to make. I'll do a little talking about them as well. There's stories behind all of these things. And I'll get back to work, and I'll talk to you later. Enjoy Dynamics3. Oh, Patreon supports all of these things. I'm trying to keep my head above water. I can't quite pay my bills, but I have ambitions towards being able to if people kick in. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not that far off from being able to pay my bills. It's not super dangerous. I'll put you at ease that way. But yeah, that's why I'm working so hard at the moment, is there's a reason. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.